Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. And we pre-recorded the last show. So that means that this show is going to be pretty much a disaster as I try to hit on everything that we missed over the last week. But I'm going to start with Bruce Arians. So he retired from the Buccaneers, right? And all last year were rumors that him and Tom Brady weren't getting along, like they were having issues with the offense and blah, blah, all this stuff. And so it's pretty clear, at least to me, and you hear the rumors that when Tom Brady retired, it's because like, he didn't want to deal with Arians in his last year. Like, he's getting old. He can only play for a couple more years. So then I think there was a deal in the works when he retired that they would put him in this position where he comes back, Arians would step into more of like a front office role or whatever they're putting him in. And he tried to play it off as like, hey, I'm leaving the team on good terms because Tom's back. But to me, if he was really cared about it, he would have went on top last year, right? You don't wait until the team implodes and then hand it off to another guy and says that like, hey, we're trying to leave you stuff. Everyone knew that the contracts for that team were for 2 years. So, like, it's pretty selfish of him, if that was his intention, to come back last year. I mean, like, yeah, they had the injuries or whatever, and they were, like, a play away, that long play to Cole Beasley? It was Cooper Kupp that ended their season. Like, they were a play away from going to overtime and then having a chance to win and potentially winning another Super Bowl. So the fact that he steps away now, to me, is just a joke. And I'm pretty sure that Tom Brady had something to do with it. Because, like, if you're the owner and Tom Brady's like, hey, I want to come back. I just can't work with coach anymore. The owner, I guarantee, would be like, all right, well, hold on a second. Let me make a few calls, right? What do you think, Matt?
I have a hard time believing that he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back for one more year. And to me, there's something wrong with that situation, because I think when you look at the part of the issue with them not winning the NFC Championship game was in part to the offensive line and not being able to keep Brady protected. So he announces his retirement. The band pretty much just goes their separate ways. He announces he's coming back, and it's not like all of those guys were just free agents or able to re-sign. So he's going to end up they're going to now be in a scramble mode of trying to find the guys to be able to protect him up front, and I think it's only going to create more issues. I think when I saw Arians talk about how he didn't want to leave a mess for the next coach, I think he's kind of setting Todd Bowles up for failure, because they had the Super Bowl run, they had the following run to the NFC Championship, and it's like, going in that this is going to be a team that just because Tom Brady's back doesn't necessarily mean they're contenders. And I think any misstep that Bowles has is going to be, it's going to be a knock on him. They're like, he has Brady, he should win every game.
Well, let's be honest. If Brady's there, they are contenders. I mean, he's been a contender his entire career. And they have the extra playoff game. So he doesn't have to win the division. All they have to do is make the playoffs and get hot. Because even the year they won the Super Bowl, everyone was saying, like, well, Tom's basically ruining the year. And Arians doesn't have it put together. And all this other stuff. Like, they were writing him off that year. And then they got hot. And Tom did his playoff magic. And that was that. So I think as long as the team stays healthy, Tom's not really going to make bad turnovers. I mean, I guess he does sometimes, but like he's going to make good decisions and at least kind of keep you in the game. And even if they're down, then he's going to really push the defense and play hot. It's one of the things that like the Steelers were missing with Ben. Like you can have all the interceptions and stuff, but when the game's on the line, who's going to be able to drive you down the field? It wasn't him. And so getting into my next topic here with the Steelers draft, I know we had a comment about Freiermuth not being like their top pick at tight end last year because Pitts or whatever. The Steelers had no chance of getting him they weren't going to trade up for a tight end, let's be honest. So they got the best guy that fits their system, and that's what they need of a quarterback here. There are rumors down here in North Carolina that pretty hot that the Panthers most likely are going to take Kenny Pickett. I don't know if you're hearing the same thing, Matt, but they have a higher draft pick. I really don't see him falling to Pittsburgh if that's true. And surprisingly, though, we're going to have like an Aaron Rodgers situation. Or remember the 49ers picked Alex Smith and then Aaron Rodgers fell all the way to the Packers. We might see that happen with the Steelers and Malik Willis. Just because a lot of teams ahead of them, I really don't think they're going to take a quarterback, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers just waited to see if he fell to them, and then they nabbed him, which I think would be a perfect fit. And the more I look at the first round, I know there's been some trades and some movement going around, but I think that would work out perfect for Pittsburgh. I don't know how much of a disaster this next year is going to be, because like at that point, you sign Mitch Trubisky. Do you use him? Because they're going to get a quarterback. They're not going to go forward with just Trubisky and their band of merry quarterbacks that they have. Like, they're going to go with Malik Willis or pick someone else, I would think, and at least see what they can get. So what do you think their strategy is going to be, and how confident are you that they're going to take a quarterback high?
Well, I think unless one of the quarterbacks that they really want drops, and whether it's Willis or Pickett or whoever, they're going to have to, if they want one of those guys, I think they're going to have to make a play to try to jump up, which typically has not been something that Pittsburgh's done. I think they have needs at wide receiver. They have needs on the offensive line. I feel like for the most part, they've done a really good job of addressing some of their defensive needs in this offseason. With the exception of that massive defensive tackle from Georgia, I really don't see them going defensive line with that first pick. With the more that I've seen of some of the secondary people that could be available, I could see them going that route and just taking the runner of who's left, because there's still some guys like Ritter that could potentially fall to the second round. I think a lot of it's just going to depend on how other teams are valuing these quarterbacks, because you have these times where you'll start to see a lot of movement. If someone unexpectedly, like they just had, who was it, the Saints that just nabbed 2 first-round picks? Yep,
I was going to bring that up, but go ahead. I'll hit that right after.
So they traded a bunch of picks around so that they have 2 first-round picks, which would give them the necessary amount of picks and positions to jump up if they feel like they need to go get something, like whether they're in a quarterback running or not. I don't know what direction their new coach is going to want to go, if they're going to want to have a younger quarterback sit behind Jameis or just to hedge themselves, because they said definitely they were going to move Hill exclusively to tight end. So maybe they're looking to add quarterback depth. If you have those picks, you can definitely jump up and grab a guy if you feel like another team could pick them. I think that's another factor that you got to weigh in on.
I would just be shocked if teams didn't pick quarterbacks, right? Because I brought up that Alex Smith draft. That was how many years ago? Almost 20 years ago, 18 or something like that, 17 maybe. I don't know how long Aaron Rodgers has been in the league, but teams have now, I think they're afraid that if they don't take a shot at the guy even in the teens, that they might pass up the next Patrick Mahomes, right? Or Ben Roethlisberger, or someone that's there. So all the mock drafts having only 2 quarterbacks taken, even with the trades, I would just be surprised if Malik Willis did fall to the Steelers. And who knows, maybe the Panthers will do a switch him and take him and then leave Kenny Pickett fall, which I could see him falling farther. I don't know if the Saints would trade up to take a chance on him, but I think there's going to be a lot more movement. And to your point about the Saints, a lot of rumors flying that the Saints made those moves to get their compensation picks for Sean Payton, meaning that he's going to be back coaching another NFL team next year. So wherever he would go, they would get picks from that team. Which there was some heat in the offseason this year with him maybe even looking to go to the college game, which surprised me because like normally if you're in the NFL for that long, you only go to the college game if you're an alum or if you've like already coached there. And the other hand is if you've just been in the booth like Herm Edwards for so long that no NFL team's giving you a chance, let's take a run at it. Like Lovie Smith did kind of the same thing where it's like, hey, they said he couldn't win in the NFL, and I'm thinking that's a great hire. I think I even said on the show like Illinois might be investing in their program for once, and then he turns out to just blow it, and Illinois is as bad as they ever were, other than beating Penn State in 38 overtimes, which I don't even know if he's still the head coach there or not. Like that's how irrelevant he's kept the Illinois program, right? Like I should know. Considering that they've been pretty hard on Michigan, saying that Michigan's one of their biggest rivals. Like, what the hell, Illinois? What are you talking about? Like, I know everyone wants to be rivals with Michigan, but like, I don't even know who's coaching your team. So like, let's just get that out of the way first. You play for your Illini Buck Trophy or whatever the hell it's called. But we'll get into college stuff later in the show. I think for the NFL stuff, that's my biggest. Like looking at these, Tom Brady's back, Bruce Arians is out. I wonder how much that shifts it. Trying to get a pulse on the overall number one pick. I know the Jags signed another defensive lineman, which made me think, like, are they going to go for Hutchinson then? Number one, trying to give him some help on the other side. It's going to be pretty much a coin flip between him, maybe the guy from Oregon or Georgia. Like that's what we're looking at right now. I would be shocked if they took one of the other guys, though, just because of how Hutchinson performed at the NFL Combine. I think you look at that and you're like, man, he's been so dominant, putting up all-time numbers. And like the film against Ohio State where they had like the 5-star guys on the offensive line that were slated to go in the first round, and he embarrassed them so bad that now if you look at the mocks, they're going like in the third round. Like he cost the Ohio State tackles millions of dollars, and they even played the Oregon guy, but I think he might have been hurt that game, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think they had a 1-to-1 comparison. But when they blow everyone up, even the other linemen that are going from the Big Ten, and they're just dominating, and then Hutchinson dominates them, it's kind of a head scratcher. And it's like, all right, well, if I have this guy in the first round, how can I have Hutchinson that much higher? And that's why at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the number one pick. I don't think that they'll do anything to make me pick one of the other guys. Although, I don't think in terms of like long-time careers or whatever, Hall of Fame stuff, you really don't know. Like I thought Jadeveon Clowney was going to be a sure thing, right? He was such a beast for South Carolina. Yeah. And then, I mean, he's had a pretty good career. Isn't he still playing? But yeah, you never know, because like that's the type of numbers that Hutchinson like put up, and he kind of had the same dominant season that Clowney had. Although I think Clowney's big issue was after his freshman year, he kind of regressed. Right, he like took plays off, didn't want to get hurt, and all this stuff. Where Hutchinson's been building, and so I think they're coming into the league with different momentum. Not saying that Hutchinson's immediately going to have a better career than Clowney. It's just hard to predict. Because I think once you get into that mindset of like not playing hard for a couple years, it's hard to turn it back on, right? At least that's how I felt with like Clowney's career, where it's taken him a while to get back to it. Now he's a serviceable guy when most people thought he would be like even a Julius Peppers or someone that was just so much better and athletic than everyone that he played for like 20 years. But let's see. I don't know if there's any other NFL stuff that I really missed. I know there were a lot of other things that randomly came up. Did you have anything while I look?
Where do you think Tyrann Mathieu is going to end up? I know he's visiting with the Saints today.
And that's another one where I don't know where he has to find a fit for him, right? And so
yeah.
I don't know if he's looking for more of a system. Hasn't he been playing more of like a nickelback lately? And I could be wrong because I haven't watched a lot of the scheming and stuff. But he's one of the ones where I think he could be a big hit, or if he signs with the wrong team for money like the Jets, he'll be irrelevant. And so I wouldn't mind seeing him on the Saints, but again, like, I just want other teams to like watch. I'm going to watch the Buccaneers, right? So I want the Saints to kind of be competitive because with Tom Brady coming in, you want them to kind of get prepared for the playoffs. If they're running through a bad Carolina team and a bad Saints team and probably a bad Falcons team, how are they going to perform in the playoffs, right? That's my number one thing. Like, normally you see these divisions that are so bad. Like, look at the Steelers all those years where they're running through the Browns, the Bengals, and then the only team that they had that had a pulse in their division was the Ravens, and they're both getting eliminated in the playoffs early. It's like, I wonder if that has something to do with it. Where some of the other divisions, like the Rams, where they came from last year, they had playoff teams like the Niners that were close, or they were in the playoffs. Who was the team that missed? Was it the Cardinals? Or the Seahawks definitely did. But like when you have those teams breathing down your neck, like you have to bring your A game, and I think it helps prepare for the playoffs. Maybe that's why the Ravens have been so bad, because they've been on the reverse: a bad Steelers team, bad Browns for the most part, and then a bad Bengals team until this year. Hard to get up. So I don't know if that fits so with the Saints, because like, do they expect Jameis to come in and really compete and need a guy like a playmaker like that on defense? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that he's a fit there, but also I don't know how much his contract demands would help Pittsburgh, because I mean they've already spent more for free agents than they typically do. And they definitely have the space to be able to sign someone like him. I think that it would be beneficial for them because they'd have both safeties between him and Fitzpatrick that they could really play games, because they're both physical style secondary guys. And I think it would be interesting to see how they utilize them, because they could both be used kind of in similar ways that would really cause a lot of issues for defenses.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. And I just don't know what the Steelers can do cap-wise. Like, they don't have really the room if they're going to be... I mean, I don't even know, because, like, I guess they would have the room now with Ben gone. But I don't know how much flexibility, because they still have guys eating up the defensive numbers. So to just keep investing in defense is that going to hold you over while you find a quarterback? Like, are you going to be able to bring someone in and hope that they can, like, turn it on? But I definitely don't see a player on that in the quarterback room currently that can just say, hey, I'm going to win you a playoff game. Like, everyone knew Joe Burrow had that at LSU, and like he just had the it factor, and he basically took over the Bengals and was like, I'm going to win you a playoff game. Trubisky's not that guy. I don't think any of the guys in their quarterback room are. Like, Mason Rudolph had a chance to step up, even knowing that he had Ben behind him. Like, that's a chance to really turn it on, and he couldn't do it. So he's not going to do it now that Ben's gone, right?
Fair enough.
Let's see what else. Oh, what'd you think of Todd Bowles, right? Because he was bad as a Jets coach. And I know we kind of skimmed over that when we talked about Arians stepping away. But his winning percentage was, how many years did he coach? He coached at least four and like 3 games in Miami for a bit. But dude, his winning percentage is to 388. Like, the highest they finished is second in the AFC East his first year, and then the wheels kind of fell off that Jets team. That was it. Rex Ryan before him, so like that wasn't even. He didn't really give them a bad team, because that was when the Jets were kind of different. I mean, I guess they were 4-12 the year he took over. But before that, like, they were no better. Like, I wonder what Rex Ryan's record was. So Rex Ryan was a total of, I guess he was 480 with them. 480 total. So not that much better. But they had been in the AFC Championship game twice. So what do you think of that move?
I mean, I think that there's a level of familiarity with the schemes, and being able to bring Foot in as the co-defensive coordinator, that I think you maintain a lot of the defensive consistency, and with Brady coming back, he basically is going to run the offense, regardless of Leftwich being there or whoever else is coordinating on the offensive side. It's going to run through Brady anyhow. So I think you get a really high level of stability. I'm curious just to see how he does, because when you look at some of those teams, like it felt like there were a lot of holes when he was there with the Jets that he was trying to fill, and he didn't really have as complete of a roster as what the potential to have is now. I know we had already said earlier there's some holes that they need to address, but if they're able to fill those through their draft, the potential's there for him to have a good year. Whether he capitalizes on it is going to be determined.
And the other three teams in the division right now are awful. So that should be at least 4 to 6 wins, I would think. Like, I could see skipping up a game against the Saints or something, maybe the Panthers or the Falcons. But, like, those franchises right now are a mess. So, like,
very much.
What are you doing? Like, if you don't win the division, I think you have to look at it and say, like, I didn't win it with Tom Brady. Ah, man, I don't even know what. Like I said at the top of the show, it's like, hey, he doesn't have to win it. All they do is get the playoffs. But for the optics, if you have Tom Brady, and I know they had the player loss, but your team is better than what the other teams have. So, like, you got to win. I would think the division.
Maybe Tom Brady was listening in and he was like, you know what, you're right. The rest of this division's hot garbage. I should come back. I could fall asleep and wake up with 5 wins.
That's probably what he was thinking. He's like, I could just back in the playoffs, maybe take a suspension like we did with the Patriots. Remember when they would win without him, and then he'd just easily cruise to.
We just feel like he's back in New England. He's like, oh yeah, I remember where Bills were a hot mess, the Jets were a mess.
Yeah, that probably is it. Teams see him.
It's like, oh, I don't even have to play anyone. I just coast right through the regular season, and then there's playoffs.
They see him and they just give up. Like, they're like, all right, we got to just take a couple years off to rebuild. Tom Brady's here, baby. So, but you brought up Larry Foote. Dude, I think they said he was at Michigan 3 years before Tom Brady was there. Like, he's older than him. And he's coaching their co-defensive while he's still quarterback. Leftwich has to be around that age, right?
Yeah, because he would have been at Marshall.
Yeah, he was at Marshall, I think even after that, right? Because Tom Brady played on the national championship team. He was back up to Greasy. That was 97. So he really played 98 and then maybe 99. That season came out right after, right? So
yeah.
I would think that he's like the same age as a lot of his coaches, which is kind of weird. Like, hey, what are we scheming today, boys? And he's just coaching with them. And then they're like, all right, time to go out. It's like the Harbaugh thing where Harbaugh practices with the team and still throws routes or whatever, except Tom's actually playing in the game. So he's like living the dream. Anything else you have for the NFL?
No.
All right. Basketball, man. We normally only talk about it in the spring, maybe a little bit sprinkled out for college anyway. And Kansas, because all year we hear about how the college football playoff cannot work, right? It can't work. The top teams are just going to blow everybody out, and then you're going to get stuck with the blue blood. It's going to be unfair. You think it's unfair that Cincinnati got in last year? If there was an expanded playoff, you had a real situation where the Final Four teams could have been Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and Ohio State. That's a real possibility for last year's playoffs, right? And so that's exactly what we got in basketball. Okay? You had Kansas, UNC, Duke, and Villanova. And I know people might say, well, Villanova shouldn't be there. They're not really a blue blood. It's they won 3 championships recently, within the past 30 years or whatever. So I'd say very much that they're in that conversation. And they're the champ of the Big East, so it's not like there's anyone else in the Big East left. It's not like Syracuse is leading that conference. It's Villanova. And so ironic that I'm pretty sure all of those schools were named in the Adidas thing, right? If you look back at, like, I know Michigan lost to Villanova. I don't want to sound like sour grapes, but starting with them, they were named, if you look at Jay Wright's record, because they talk about, like, oh, Jay Wright's so good, he's going to be the next Coach K, right? And so everyone's like, oh, yeah, holy crap, like, who is this guy? He must be young. Dude, he's been coaching at Villanova since 2001. No one ever heard of him because until they started paying players around that investigation, their team was garbage. Like, he made the Elite Eight once, Matt, before 2013, which is ironically when this NCAA investigation started. And guess what? 2 national championships, a Final Four this year. I mean, I guess he did make a Final Four before that, maybe. But, like, they weren't good. They weren't winning their conference, which would have been the Big East. They had 1 conference title before that. And most of them were early exits in the tournament. Like, he was a good coach. And, I mean, they were really well coached. That's why they beat Michigan. That's why they went as far as they did. I forget who they beat after that. Was it Houston? Like, they were just well coached. They didn't have the talent. Like, if you looked at them, like, sides up against Michigan, you're like, holy shit, they're going to get killed. But the coaching won out, man. And so that's my thing. Like, Villanova, you've been consistent, and people are going to call me out on this probably, but they weren't winning anything. Jay Wright's first 3 years, like, they were in the NIT. If you look at what UNC's done with Hubert Davis, that is what a young coach, like, if you're thinking, like, this guy could be legit, like, he's already having him compete in the national championship game in, like, his, first or second year? Like, that's absurd. Yeah. So, of course, they're in it. UNC was on academic probation, Matt, because they had fake classes for their athletes. African American studies. If you think I'm making it up, you can look it up. They were on SACS probation. Like, the only, like, major school to be on academic probation and have a strike on their record, which is crazy. The U.S. News and Report or whatever, don't really factor that into their rankings. You would think that having fake classes would get you knocked down, but nope. And of course, the media loves them, so they're there. Kansas, they're pinched for offering Zion Williamson, who ironically went to Duke. So if you follow the money, Duke made him a better offer, right? If the guy's taking bids,
one would think,
and he's like, "Hey, sorry, Kansas, I got a better offer." I don't know what else that would mean, Matt. And I bring this up because now the focus is on, like, LSU. Their entire team quit. Did you see that? So their coach gets pushed out for NCAA investigations. I think all 11 of their players are now transferring. And so, like, everyone that's on their staff is just gone. Like, they quit once they got out of the NCAA tournament. They got eliminated, which I said, pick against them because that team's about to implode, and they did. I mean, I saw some brackets where they were, like, picked in the Final Four, and I was kind of like, what the heck? But I bring this up because I think that at this point, the investigation's gone on too long. Just let it go. Like, with NIL, who cares? Like, this is what the NCAA wanted. They could have punished these basketball schools, but they know that the NCAA tournament funds their entire operation. I did have a thing here where, like, what did it say? A couple of Congress members put together a bill where they're going to fine the NCAA if investigations drag out, and they have to be done within, like, 2 years or something. It was a pretty quick turnaround. Which, if you look at this investigation, like, it goes back to that vacated Michigan, or the Michigan National Championship loss to Louisville. Like, Louisville had their championship vacated, right? Kansas is still waiting. Like, I don't think they really said that they're going to do anything. In the meantime, they just won a national championship. And even the announcers knew that they could lose this championship. So they said, like, oh, even if it goes away, the kids won this or whatever. Like, they were trying to make a case on national television for the NCAA not to take their championship away. And I'm like, well, did they stop cheating? Like, what do you mean? Did they take it away? We don't know. UNC, I think the reason they were there, and I thought they had a great chance to win it, their team actually was a lot older than the other teams. Like, they had a lot of seniors on that team. And with the COVID rules, older teams definitely had the advantage. I think Villanova had the same situation happen to them because like you have younger kids coming in that like at Duke that Coach K's been putting them in. They've been doing all these like, hey, we're going to get another great recruiting class. They might never mesh because they're only going to play with each other for what, 8 months or so? And it's surprising that Duke went as far as they did because of that. So I want to see the same thing happen in football because if you did a 16-team playoff, everyone says, like, well, the 16-team will never win. They don't win in basketball either. Like, if you look at the regional, that would basically be what a football bracket would end up being. What was it this year? St. Peter's, what were they, a 15 seed?
Yeah.
Who knows if a 15 seed like Liberty or what one BYU, if they go on a run? Like, you don't know it depends on how the bracket shapes up. What if in that scenario Cincinnati was number 2? I think it would be plausible that BYU or Liberty could have beat them last year. I can't remember who was around that spot. There were a couple other ones, Coastal Carolina, App State, like, and what was the other one? Was it Louisiana Monroe? I can't remember. But like, if those lower teams are getting in, and they happen to catch a 2 seed that isn't as talented, like no one's debating if they were playing Alabama or Georgia, they would get boat raced, right? They're the 2 most talented teams in college football. So yeah, if you match up against them, you're going to get screwed. But Alabama had a loss, so maybe they match up against someone else, and that's what we've been seeing with the playoffs. So I don't think that the playoffs would be as big as blowouts of what people say. And I think it would be very select games. So, like, if they had to play every game on Saturday, I think you could do like the NCAA tournament does, where they put the 1 and 16 on like first, I think, and then they had like the 8 and 9 on at the same time because they figure that's going to be a good game. So the college football could do the same exact thing. Start the first 2 games at noon, and then how many games would there even be? Like 8? Was there 8 games? So you'd have 2 at noon, 2 at 3:30 or whatever, like normal, and then maybe 2 at 7, and like stagger the last 2 so they're like start at 9:20 or whatever, and then that's it. Like that's your bracket, and you try to set it up so that the bigger seeds are matched up with like their counterpart in the bracket. So like the 15 and 2, they'd play at the same time as like the 7 and 10, so that you're hoping that one of those games is a good game. And then I think in the second round, you're going to see good games no matter what. You might get one blowout out of those 4, but I think they'd be a lot tighter than what the 4 games are right now. Or there's not even 4 games, there's 2 games. So like, I think that having those games being fresh, not taking a month off, because that's basically what they're doing now. You're getting a month off, so of course they're coming in cold. I think we would see a lot tighter performance, and even the teams that do win that are the lower seed, they're going to be hot, so there's still a chance that they can make a run. And I think that's all the fans want to see. Like, I want to see Army, they have all those national championships, same with like Navy back in the day. They'll never have a chance now. But with that option, who knows? What if they had a run where like they upset whatever, and don't even tell me that like, oh, Alabama can't lose, or like Oklahoma can't lose. Remember when Boise beat them and all that stuff? Like, Alabama was losing to teams like that too. So you got to give them a chance. It wasn't that long ago that Georgia was getting killed by West Virginia in the bowl game. So give those other smaller schools a chance and see what happens. I mean, West Virginia killed Clemson too. So otherwise, West Virginia has no chance to get in. Pitt still talks about 13-9. That was like the coffin, the nail in the coffin for those smaller schools right there. I mean, I guess Cincinnati finally got in this year, but I honestly don't. If they weren't going to the Big 12, I don't think they would have put them in. I honestly don't. So that's my thought on that.
But I also think that it was easier to be able to put them in as almost as an example, because you knew going in that they were going to end up running into either Georgia or Alabama, and so it was like we'll kind of put them in their place, so that they avoided the whole UCF issue again. Because had they have not put them in, and they play the fourth or fifth best SEC team or Big 12, whoever it is, and they beat them, then they have the right to claim the national championship. And I think it kind of set them up to be able to go, which, we've talked endlessly about it. It all boils down to win your games. It doesn't matter what conference you're in or who you are, is if you win your games, you have that right to raise it. And I think the more hype you end up getting by winning your games and that margin of victory helps. If you're winning all of your games and you're a lower level school and you're winning with last second field goals and different stuff like you're not going to have that. You're going to have the record, but you're not going to have that momentum compared to a team that maybe is blowing people out of the water on a weekly basis.
You forget Craig Krenzel, baby. Ohio State that year, they're barely doing anything all year, needing like last second passes against Purdue and stuff, and then they beat Miami, which everyone thought Miami was going to be the world killers, right?
But I mean, let's be honest. When Ohio State did it that year, if Michigan wins every game on a last second field goal, they're not going to be kept out of the playoffs.
No way.
Like there is a little bit of that. There is a little bit of that name game being played.
Oh, I know. I've said that for years, Matt. If Michigan's close, or Ohio State's close, or Notre Dame's close, guess what? We're in, baby. We're in. I'm sorry about the other schools. Penn State, cough. Like that's why I like. Did you see they're doing the E60 on like Penn State and Joe Paterno? It's like, hey, if your team would, if you fans would support the team instead of like just idolizing the coach and like the students going out and rioting in the streets and overturning cars because of statue, like that's ridiculous. How about you do that when your team gets ripped out of the playoffs for a team that you already beat and then get slaughtered? It's like, all right, well, maybe that should have been us. Yeah, it should have been. How about you fans riot about that? And then they wouldn't be doing, because I saw a lot of Penn State fans that were like, oh, damn, like I can't believe they're doing this to us again. They're making us do the mud. It's like, you guys had a chance 4 years ago to change that narrative from saying like, hey, yeah, we're just crazy about Joe Paterno to, hey, we're just crazy about football here. But guess what, Matt? Not a beat. Hey, we missed the playoffs. Oh, shucks. Man, if only Joe was here. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? And I mean, and I'll even say, like, as a Michigan guy, like, Michigan should have scrubbed Bo Schembechler from the halls. Like, I don't give one shit about if he enabled, get him gone. Like, I don't care what he did in the past, man, for the football success. Doesn't matter. Now's the time where it's like, hey, we're going to support the team. He'd give him, like, that quote, the team. It is about the team. So how about the fans support the team, and you don't have to enable that stuff at all. Like, yeah, it's unfortunate it happened. Put it out there so that there's awareness for other schools. But, like, don't try to pretend like, hey, you know what? He probably didn't know, right? When he even said his press conference, he knew. And he even said, I should have did more. Like, Bo Schembechler's dead, so we don't know how much about him or whatever. But there's affidavits and all stuff that players said that they told him. So I would think that, same scenario as Paterno. He just didn't have that interview that was like damning where he said, hey, yeah, I knew I should have did more. It's like, all right, Joe. Like, come on. So that's what I want to see. Like some of the other schools, like you tell me like, hey, we're going to rally around her. Like Tennessee's not going to get left out. It's like, maybe they will. Right? Like how strong is like the Tennessee brand now? They're not Texas. Like Texas would be one of the other ones that I don't think would be left out. Even USC with Lincoln Riley, I think they would try to put them in, but like if they're staring down the barrel of like Notre Dame versus Michigan and Alabama versus even Clemson at this point, just because of the recency bias, like I don't think that USC is a shoo-in. Or hell, even if it was Alabama, Texas before they joined the SEC, and Michigan and Notre Dame, there's zero chance USC gets in that scenario.
But on the flip side of that, I think they're looking for an Oregon, they're looking for a USC to kind of pick some of the slack up so that it's not so heavily East Coast bias. If they
I don't think they care. Look at the basketball tournament. That was the whole point of me bringing that in as a segue. Like, yeah, are people tired of those schools? Yeah. Were they named as cheating? Yes. Did anything get done? No. The media loves them, and fans are going to tune in. I didn't look at the TV numbers, but I'm going to say that for Coach K's last game, like they're probably pretty good. even though it was on TBS, which is a load of shit. But I'll say that the NCAA now with the NIL, don't punish those schools. Let Michigan put back up the Fab Five banners, because like they're like showing Chris Webber called a timeout like in the pregame, and they were like trying to tie it into like North Carolina's last championship. Like they just played Villanova like 3 years ago. Why not show the buzzer beater of them losing? I mean, I know they did in the montage, but like it's just weird. Like some of the stuff that the media like harps on. Why not show Michael Jordan hitting a buzzer beater? Why are you showing the Chris Webber timeout? But like the NCAA is still profiting off that, yet he's not allowed to have the banners up. Weird, right? So I think all those schools should just get together and say, you know what? We don't care at this point. Put them back up. Michigan, put back up the Big Ten championship banners or whatever that are down, because there's like 3 or 4 years of them. I think Ohio State has one missing too. Put them all back up and say, like, now it's the NIL era. If Kansas wants to pay players, do it. Because I honestly think that this might be the last hurrah for them. Because with the Texas and Oklahoma leaving, I don't think the Big 12 is going to get a favorable TV contract. Do you?
No.
And I mean,
I would be hard pressed to see them getting something crazy.
And I'll even bring it up because I was going to mention it anyway, but their commissioner's leaving. Bowlesby or whatever. He's been there like through the entire saga of like them losing all their schools and him being like, nothing's wrong. Like I know Baylor and Kansas, like they won the last 2 championships, Big 12 and basketball, and they have some strong women's programs. But at this point, like I really don't think that they're going to be anything more than like a Big East. What they do like in basketball. So like I don't see how Kansas, if their football team doesn't turn it around where they can make extra money, I just really don't see them being able to keep the NILs up. And maybe they do have a strong donor class that only cares about basketball. So maybe I'm wrong. Because basketball, you only have to pay for what, 5, 6 guys? And you can make it happen. I mean, like look at Michigan right now. Preseason, I've seen them anywhere next year from number 4 again, all the way down because like their top freshman came in, didn't play hot this year. Now they're predicted to come back. Where at the end of last year, and even if they would have made an NCAA tournament run, if they beat Villanova and play Kansas in like the Final Four or Elite Eight, like wherever they would have played them, maybe they do go pro then. But now they might have to come back, and I think you're going to see the UNC effect, where you get a lot of top recruits. The ones that stay because of NILs, those are the teams that are going to make deep runs. Like eventually, the more games you win in the tournament, like those guys stick around. Like if UNC gets some of those guys back, why not have another run? Like Duke, they're going to keep losing their guys, losing their coach. Like I don't think they're going to get anyone back. I'm curious to see how they do next year. I know they have a good recruiting class, but football and basketball are a little bit different in that regard, where like you can look and see like, oh, Michigan football is getting a lot of people back. Like I know they lost a couple guys into the draft, but they've been losing guys to the draft for the past 5 years. How do you know? As long as the quarterbacks are there and the offensive line's pretty much there, I think they would be a favorite. Like same with Ohio State. Like you just reload at this point. So I think basketball is going to start to get to that point where you have all these teams that had kind of fallen off because of the one and dones. Now with NILs, you don't put up 30 games or 30 points a night. Some boosters like, hey, we're going to get you a deal where skip the G League, just come back for one more year and get paid and try to improve your stock to make millions. And I think that's going to be very enticing. And I don't think the NCAA can do anything about it. So that's my last thing on it. Did you see the floorboard controversy? Because it's big down here in the South, Matt, where the floor buckled when UNC's guy got hurt at the end of the game. So they think there's something wrong with the court. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's one of the few times where you actually have video evidence to show where the injury happened. So, although I did kind of like the way that the court looked, where it had like that baseball dugout type look, or everyone's kind of like down off the floor.
Well, I think it's always like that for the big games.
Post it again.
So, and I mean, they have the court raised, and there is going to be some give to it. I just don't think I think if he would have got hurt and it was because of the floor, I think his reaction would have been different, right? Sure, the fans could point at it and be like, hey, you know what happens? I mean, there's been times playing sports where, like, you tramp on a bag playing baseball, and it gives away, and you, like, almost roll your ankle, and you're like, what the hell? Like, what kind of bag is this? Like, I think he would do the same thing. Like, they've been playing on it all night. Maybe it got, like, a little slippy. There were some other issues, like, down there with their guys tripping or whatever. Honestly, I just think they were tired. I know the floor buckled for him, but he's also a big dude. So, like, if you slow-mo'd a bunch of other plays, was the floor kind of bending because it was the raised floor like you brought up? I bet it was. Like, basketball floor is not supposed to be, they're not playing on pavement, Matt.
Yeah.
There's always some give to it. But, I mean, like, they shouldn't have blew the lead. And I did see someone say that maybe it was the rim on the other side because, like, the points on that other side was, like, 20 points ahead. Teams going that way, but who knows? I don't know. That it was such a close game. I don't think they would have planned it that way. Like, if it ends up being that close, like, you both had the same amount of chances, I think. Just take the shot. Just drive in. Why are you spending the last 20 seconds jacking up threes? Drive the ball in and make them hit the free throws. Like, we've seen it all tournament. Like, what game was I watching where the guys missed the free throws? Hell, it might have even been Michigan's game where you missed the free throws. Guess what? You lose the game. You miss the free throws and you miss layups, which is pretty much how Michigan lost. Like, you're going to lose the game. And you can look at the tape and you can say, like, well, maybe coaching could have been a little bit better. But it's like, at some point, these guys, like the freshmen that come in super hyped, they got to be able to make their free throws and they got to make layups, right? And I don't know how many you're missing, like 7 from inside, like the paint. It's pretty brutal. So, and it wasn't just Michigan. There's another team that I can't remember. It was like maybe the Final Four. Maybe it was Duke. I can't remember. But someone missing layups, and you're like, got to make them, boys, or you're going to lose. Anything else you have about that? The basketball stuff? Yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens with the NILs and even the investigation. Like, I don't think they can just hammer LSU and then look the other way on all the other teams that were named in that report. So, like, and some of them weren't even in there.
Well, no, I think that's where they're just dragging it out.
And that's why, like, they're dragging it out for so long that, like, at some point, it's like, all right, what's going to happen and how far are they going to let it go? Like, are they going to let it go for 5 more years? And then do they take a banner away? And it's like, all right, how far do you go? I'm looking to see if there's an update. They update the Jayhawks before the tournament, like, final. Like, that's great as you're getting ready to go ahead and do something. They Kansas asked for documents. They did it, whatever. But, like, NCAA or UNC put the rule book out on the NCAA. You wait till the very last minute, ask for an extension, ask for clarification. They're not going to have more clarification. And I think that's why the Senators are putting that in. Like, they just make the ruling and that's final. And there are no appeals.
Yeah.
There are supposed to be no appeals on this because it's taking so long. But, like, if they're not cooperating, just give them the death penalty. And then, like, Penn State, let them fight it after. Like, people don't realize Penn State fought it and got their wins for Paterno reinstated. And then, like, Notre Dame tried to do that and they didn't get theirs back. Which is just like, what? How can you give someone back but not the other one? I'm looking to see, too, because I'm trying to see, like, what the sanctions were on Jay Wright. Because I think he got hit twice, to be honest. But I think the first one was earlier in his career. Like, when they were in the NIT. Of course, it's been scrubbed since he's been, like, doing so good. The NCAA is not going to want to talk about their old investigation. Let's go back to, like, 2002. Yeah, the Wildcats had to suspend 12 players. We talked about it before for, like, using credit cards and, like, getting paid at the school or whatever. So, like, you have 12 dudes that suspended, and then the other investigation comes up, and they're supposed to be on the ledger that they never released. And that's where, like, I want to see, like, what's the full ledger? It's like Al Capone. Like, you have the ledger. Is it every team? Because if every school is on the ledger, then just say it. Like, don't have rumors leak out that, like, hey, Maryland's on it, Villanova's on it, Tennessee's on it, Auburn's on it. Like, all these other schools is like, oh, yeah, these schools that are, like, winning now, besides Maryland. But that was their old coach that would have been on it. So, like, at some point, if they're not on it, because, like, Michigan wasn't supposed to be on it, Florida State wasn't supposed to be on it, it'd be nice to know, because our schools have had success without being on it. But what about schools like Pitt? Like, were they on it? Penn State was on it, and Penn State's been hot garbage. And are they going to sanction Penn State? No. But are they going to sanction Kansas then? Because, like, wouldn't it be weird, or actually it'd be hilarious, if they let Kansas go, but they did sanction Penn State? And again, and the fans wouldn't even care about it because it's basketball. But that's my last thing. I went on way too long for that. Spring football games are beginning, though. Sticking with some of the college thing. And your boy, dude, Harbaugh, he's back with your man, Kaepernick. What did you think of his workout at the Michigan spring game?
Outside of maybe 2 or 3 passes, I didn't watch it.
So you were just analyzing the film.
Why would I watch Michigan?
I was out, dude, so I didn't get to watch it.
I watched Michigan spring game.
I wanted to watch it just to see, because they're Big Ten champs, like, they're in the playoffs. Like, that could be a good hyped up spring game that they're going to have. McCarthy didn't play, though. So he had that. I don't know if he ended up having to have surgery for a shoulder, or if they were doing, like, the rest and recovery. I thought that they said that the rest and recovery didn't work, and he had to have surgery. So he didn't play. So I think Cade threw for both teams, and I didn't watch it yet. But I think it was brilliant.
But I will tell you, it was interesting to see, and Harbaugh's done a great job over the years of attracting the circus to Michigan.
Pushing buttons.
He had Ric Flair there for signing day.
Tom Brady.
It was like, hey, we got all these celebrities coming to signing, and then you weren't allowed to do that. And now he's bringing Kaepernick in, and next thing, be like, you can't have anyone in the NFL at your spring game.
It wasn't Spike Lee there too?
Yeah.
I told you it was like a joke. Like, the NCAA has been investigating those basketball schools, Matt, for almost 10 years now, it seems. Because, like, it is getting close to, like, when was Louisville's thing? Because it was, like, right after that. The UNC investigation and that was at the same time. And they were supposed to close in about 2015, 16, a reasonable amount of time. The only ones they closed were, like, Louisville. They penalized them. UNC, they let go. And now the other ledgers come out, and they're like, we'll see in another 10 years what happens. But as soon as Harbaugh has, like you said, spring game with Tom Brady, or signing day with Tom Brady or Ric Flair, it's like, no, we got to hurry up and put that ban in. Oh, you're having summer camps in Georgia? No. And even he did it at unrepresented schools. Like, if he did it at the HBCUs now, like the NCAA, could you imagine because that's basically what he was doing in the first place. The media just kind of was like, oh, whatever. He was like trying to get them to have hype, but could you imagine if he did it now with like Dion down there and the amount of like the press that would be there, and the NCAA wouldn't be able to touch it because like they're going to ban HBCU like spring camps or whatever. Like, that would be absurd. Yeah, but 5 years ago, basically they just didn't care. And so that's banned immediately. The NCAA is able to get together and get all their things in order, but not for like a wiretap on LSU where he's like saying he paid players. It takes him 3 or 4 tournament runs before they finally have to fire him. It's like absurd. So you're probably right. I joked with you. I said, well, this will be the end of like tryouts or whatever at spring games. There'll be regulations on the spring game now, and it will all be because of Harbaugh. And they'll be like, nope, can't have that. Like, nope. Nick Saban called in, said no.
It was interesting, though, to note that Kaepernick's stance has changed, because initially it was, I refused, like, he was only accepting starting quarterback bids. And then, like, he was bashed at the NFL for how it was like a market for slavery. And now it's, well, I'm open now to being a backup. Like, you've been out of the league for almost 10 years now. Like, at some point, that ship sailed. You're not Tom Brady that has continued to play. Like, I think from the clips that they showed, could he still fill a roster spot somewhere? Absolutely. I don't doubt that he could be, but as a NFL franchise, why would the equivalent of that would be a team trying to sign Tim Tebow? Like Urban Meyer tried to sign Tim Tebow, and it was an absolute train wreck.
Well, that's exactly
all
it.
Became was
the media.
Was just a nonstop media blitz.
The media's going to be there. It's going to be heavy. And if he's the backup, they're immediately going to be writing stories about how he should be the starter. Like, could you imagine a situation where he could probably fit in, like the Panthers last year with Cam Newton? If he's the backup to Cam Newton and they lose a game or two, they'd be calling for Kaepernick to start. Like, it would not be enough. Like, I think the only situation would be like, what if he went to like Green Bay where he's backing up Aaron Rodgers? Like, he would almost have to be a legendary guy. Or like even Tom Brady, which I don't think their styles really mesh, so it doesn't make sense for him to be the backup of them. Maybe they could make it work with like an Aaron Rodgers, even like a Russell Wilson. But like I think Russell Wilson would even get heat, saying that he's past his prime. They need Kaepernick in there. Like I really only think the only two quarterbacks that he could be behind, I guess maybe Lamar Jackson 3. And I think the Ravens did try to sign him.
Say Russell Wilson because inevitably Russell Wilson will get hurt, and then he would be able to just take over when Russell Wilson misses 8 games.
Hey, I like Russ. Man. He's an NC State guy,
but he's good to me. He's good to miss half a season now.
Well, yeah, he broke his finger weird last year, and I didn't think he's even coming back. But I'll say this: if Kaepernick came and played, like I think he would be good enough. It's just going to be. Is he going to turn down another contract? Like the last thing that they did, was it the Ravens or the 49ers? Like I almost wonder what would be different if he had taken the 49ers deal. Because now they're like, the 49ers, they don't even know what they want to do. And they're saying like Trey Lance is going to play this year. And they still haven't gotten rid of Garoppolo, which is my piece, right? I don't think they got rid of him. So he's the last big quarterback to move. Did Cole Beasley get signed yet when I was out?
I don't know.
Because maybe his asking price will drive down and my Packers will get him, baby. That's what I want. Like, I want the Packers to get, like, another hated man out there. Because everyone hates Aaron Rodgers. So it'd be, like, another, like, anti-vaxxer or whatever. Isn't that what Cole Beasley was? So put them together and just have America hate them. They just become villains. And then they could make it up by having Kaepernick on the team. Because they're going to move Jordan Love, right? I think they would have to, because didn't Aaron Rodgers sign for another 2 years? Could you imagine the media circus if Aaron Rodgers dating that actress lady that I don't know her name, Kaepernick's there, and then they have like a Cole Beasley? Like that would be insane. If they were in the playoffs again, like man, it'd be crazy. Could you imagine if like Aaron Rodgers looks like he's shitting on his leg again in the playoffs, and they roll Kaepernick out there like the 49ers did with Harbaugh? Whenever Alex Smith was there and he was like the change of pace guy, that could still work. Like, I'm not even joking. I saw Kaepernick. He's probably lost a step or two, but he still looked mobile. He still has the same issues with accuracy where he can throw a dime or he'll just overthrow you by like 20 feet. Kind of like a Cam Newton. So like, it's like, what's going to happen? I don't know. What is going to happen? Is he going to try to run it and get hurt? Is he going to overthrow it? I don't know. So it adds that excitement. And as a backup quarterback for a championship team, like I honestly think, because I was looking at it, like, would I want the Packers to sign him? And I would say, yeah, because I think it could work. And I honestly think that that's one of the only teams that could make it work. Like you get rid of Love. Who else are you going to really bring in? He's not really a threat to Aaron Rodgers because like I said, Aaron Rodgers is such a stature and like a keepsake in the media that they're not going to like talk about, oh, you need to bench Aaron Rodgers. That would be absurd because all they do is talk about how they love Aaron Rodgers all day. Like Chris Collinsworth brings him up in every broadcast I listen to. He's like, I wonder what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now. It's like, why are you even talking about him? Are you looking at it? Do you have a picture of him in your wallet? So if Kaepernick was there though, I wonder how creative they could get. And they could even just run like some Wildcat Tim Tebow type stuff. I just don't think like, and honestly, if he's there and the media goes, guess what? That's less media pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Realistically, I don't see how Kaepernick could turn down a deal to go to the Packers whenever he knows that if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, he's right there, potentially leading a playoff team, maybe a Super Bowl team, contender team. Like I just think that if there was one place for him to go, because I thought about this after the spring game. I was like, who would really sign him? Like the Ravens, I think the hype's going to be on him. They're already talking about how Lamar Jackson can't win in the playoffs. Like too much. Like they can't even risk it. Same with like Kyler Murray in like Arizona. You're starting to hear them whispers. Maybe he wants out. He's unfollowing people on Instagram. Like you need a stable quarterback because he brought up Russell Wilson. I know you're kind of joking about him getting hurt, but like the Broncos, could you really imagine if they dealt with that? They had the first circus with Tim Tebow and they pushed him out and he won them a playoff game. And they kind of did the 49er thing where they're like, hey, we want Peyton Manning. 49ers are like, hey, we want to get rid of Garoppolo pretty bad. We've been saying it for 3 years, guys. And so I wonder, like, where does he go? And if he ends up in Pittsburgh, dude, I'll just laugh because I think Garoppolo would do well in Pittsburgh. And I wouldn't even surprise me. Like, they signed the Honey Badger. They bring him in. They draft a couple wide receivers. And the defense is already good enough, gets healthy. Boom.
That's a win.
A playoff team. And everyone's like, oh, man, I thought the Steelers were going to be crappy. So that's my wild rant on spring football games. I know NC State's having theirs this coming weekend. I'll have to see if I can make it over to it and try to get some in. I know a lot of teams just do it as like a scrimmage, so they're kind of boring. And like I didn't watch Michigan's, but I heard that the crowd was pretty empty. And I almost wonder if teams did it as like an NIL event going forward. I shouldn't talk about this on the show. I just call Harbaugh up and give my ideas and say like, bro, do an NIL event at the spring game, especially for players that are like, whatever. You can come in, they can do like a carnival or whatever, where you're like throwing footballs into things. You pay like $1 or whatever, and you put it into like the general scholarship fund, and you have like autograph opportunities for the athletes after and photograph booths where they stay and they get like whatever money. I guarantee the fans would show up then. Right, because I know like NC State lets you down on the field, you meet the players after. Like, what if you did more of a structured event where, hey, these are our studs over here. You want a picture with them? It's like $20, or even if they do a pass, like, hey, these seniors or whatever, you buy a pass and you go get all the pictures with all the seniors, and then they split the NIL money. Perfect, Matt. Right? Perfect.
That makes sense.
So, I'll call Harbaugh up. And let them see what else. I'm going to look back through here because I know, like I said, there are a couple other things we missed. Want to congratulate the Steiner brothers, Matt, making it to the WWE Hall of Fame. And I feel like I had deja vu. I thought they already made it like a couple years ago. Michigan wrestlers from back in the day. So giving them a shout out. Man, I forgot our topic was supposed to be the Pat signal, Matt. Pat Narduzzi signed a contract through 2030. What are your thoughts on that?
I liked it. I think they won the ACC. He deserved it, the extension. I don't know who in their right mind wants to go to Pitt if they were to push him out. Like, I almost look at it like some of those other situations, like when they had Bo Pelini at Nebraska. Like, all he was doing was consistently winning, and then they pushed him out, and now they're like barely a 300 ball club. Like,
they didn't get lucky. Michigan State pushed out D'Antonio kinda, and then they got turned down by a bunch of coaches until Mel Tucker fell in their lap. It's only been 2 years now, so we don't know how it's going to end up for them. But
I mean, sometimes I think you got to be careful with how fast you push people out, because if you push them out and then you don't have a decent coach available, you really end up setting the program back really far. And I think they're making progress, and I think with the way that Narduzzi's style is, I like the hire. I liked it from the hire, that he was a defensive-minded coach, that he was going to play to the strength of play tough. I mean, it's the same way the Steelers play good defense, generate just enough offense that you're not going to lose the game, and you have a shot. And I mean, they've had some big wins during his tenure. It's just the thing that he has to cut out to get over the hump is to be more consistent. And don't lose that game to a directional Michigan school, or don't lose to a directional Florida school. You know, you're winning the games in the ACC that matters. You just won the ACC championship. Like, you're there. You're really close to being a playoff style team, but don't lose that screw up game that they have every year, where it's to someone that they have no business losing to. They blow a game, and then it's like you can't even lobby for them because it's like, well, they lost to Youngstown State, so they don't even deserve to be in one of the bigger bowls.
And I think, I mean, it wasn't in Western Michigan last year, and I mean, the fact that Michigan smoked them, like there was no debate. Like when they were doing so well in the ACC, there was no way an ACC team was getting in over Michigan because of that loss. So it hurts the whole conference. Like they're going to look at like the comparison, like, okay, well, these schools matched up. It's like, oh, you guys lost to that school, and you're winning the Coastal. Like, give me a break. So I agree with you, and I want to say like Pitt is in the situation where they need to get their donors together and work on like an NIL deal, kind of like Miami's doing. You're in a big city. What the hell are you doing? There's zero reason that you can't put something together that would at least rival like Penn State. I don't know what Penn State's doing, but like I think schools that aren't in big cities I think they're gonna suffer for a bit. It depends like how close you are, because like down here, NC State's right in Raleigh. They already have a bunch of business stuff where if they really wanted to start promoting like athletes at businesses, like I always joke about like car dealerships or whatever, they could easily do it. Michigan's right beside Detroit. I know they're competing with Michigan State, but I think they kind of own that market in terms of like sponsorships. Pitt should own Pittsburgh. Like, what are you doing? I think then you put the pressure on Penn State to kind of fill those. Are they going to be able to pull from Philadelphia? Definitely not for basketball season with Villanova there. Are they going to be able to do it for football and get some of those sponsorships? Maybe Rutgers can take advantage of being so close with their location, and they start doing it. And can they take off? Because everyone's waiting for them. I don't even think they're getting their full share from the Big Ten yet. So, like, if they're going to take advantage, Pitt should 100% be ahead of them, especially for basketball. I don't understand why Pitt can't just pay players and just have them come there now when it's pretty much legal, and they watch Kansas do it, and they win the championship, and Pitt can't even win like a game in the ACC. Like, are you serious? They can't do that? Like, even Penn State's winning like Big Ten ACC challenge games. Like, what the shit, Pitt? So that's what I want to see them do, and they got to put it together and kind of go back from there. But I think that's really the last thing I have on here. Kaepernick was back. Spike Lee's there. There's some arrests. The Vikings led the arrests. I was at Disney, Matt. So I talked to some Dolphins fans down there, and they were really sad. They thought they could get Harbaugh. And I was kind of surprised because I'm like, you guys actually want Harbaugh? I thought no one wanted him. The Vikings wanted him. Because they had him. They had him like right there. And I talked to a Vikings fan too. I was down there, and he's like, what the hell? Like, we had Harbaugh, and I don't know why they didn't hire him. I'm like, yeah, but they had him. He was just there showing up. All they had to say was like, yeah, let's get started today. He'd already told everyone he's leaving. So that was crazy. The Ohio State fans weren't as loud this year. Remember how they were like cussing me out and stuff? I only got one. I only wore a Michigan shirt the one day just because it's too hot down there for me to be messing around. So I like wearing like the light dry fit shirts. They're just like plain colors. But I did wear a Michigan shirt the one day, my running one, and I got that one chant that they always do, like they don't give a damn about the whole state of Michigan. And it made me think as I'm sitting at Disney. Well, it was a woman that started it. So with her and her like 3 daughters yelling at me and my family, I'm like, this is interesting. But I also wondered, like, they're doing the whole chant and everyone at the park's looking at them. And I'm like, what? Do they do this to Michigan State fans too? Because like the cheer says they don't give a damn about the whole state of Michigan, but I honestly have never heard them say that to Michigan State fans, right? You would think it would be the same exact thing. Or do they really only give a damn about Michigan? Because, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'd be sad too watching that performance last year. I'd be pretty mad too, because like this is the first year I can laugh about it, man. Normally you're getting yelled at and you're like, you guys just crushed us. What are you talking about? Why are you so mad at me? Our school sucks at football. So that's all I had. Do you have anything for the final bell?
No.
Oh my gosh.
SouthboundSports.com.
You forgot your boy, because we got some feedback, Matt, about you talking shit on Barry Bonds, but you sent me a message about Pujols coming back. He has to be what, Julio Franco territory now? Right? How old
Fountain
is he?
of Youth. He was DHing. He was just hanging out.
Yeah, put an asterisk by him. Because Barry Bonds was going to DH. No one would touch him in the AL because their owners are all collaborating against him. And the Giants were like, hey, if we had a DH, we'd keep him. And I'm like, yeah, who wouldn't? He's a beast.
Yes.
So Barry Bonds, you could add at least another 50 home runs, I think, on his record if they let him DH. What, are you serious? He couldn't hit 10 home runs for the next couple of years? Because you know DHs are doing nothing. Even if you hurts his knee.
Obviously, he couldn't, because if he would have, someone would have signed him.
No, they wouldn't. Just like they wouldn't sign Tim Tebow up to the majors when he probably could have done as well as those other scrubs that the Mets had. The Mets were so bad and Tim Tebow's like hitting 200 or something. There's guys in the pros, look at the Pirates. They have dudes hitting
he wasn't even batting his weight.
They have dudes hitting 100 for the Pirates, Matt. That one game I went to a year or two ago, one of their starters was hitting 0.088. What the hell is that?
Yeah, that's because they're a little league team.
Yeah, it's a weight of the dog.
They can't even run a free hot dog night right.
They ran out of grilly cheese when I was there. They were like, hey, get a grilly cheese, but only at 3 vendors. 3 concessions. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then the hot dogs, they don't have buns or whatever. It's a joke. But you can't tell me. The Pirates should just sign them and say, hey, we're going Tim Tebow. We're going to go full heel. Everyone's going to hate the Pirates. And which is crazy is the Pirates have the 3rd or 4th most television viewers of any team. So it's hey, we're a small market. Leave us alone. It's if you guys didn't sign such a crappy media deal, you could probably be a better market, because it's really not about people showing up, because look at college football. It's whoever has the TV money. So the Pirates could have the TV money, except they sign with AT&T or whatever that weird network is that they have all their games on. It only shows them in West Virginia football. It's what the hell is this network? So, and that's not a slight at West Virginia football. I love West Virginia. I hope they come back. It's a great color scheme, as always, right? Hard workers. So I hope West Virginia gets back. I would love to see a Michigan-West Virginia playoff game, or hell, even a national championship. I think that'd be fun. But I don't have anything else. I just wanted to review a little bit about Pujols, because Barry Bonds is 100 times better than Pujols, Matt. Let's just say it. He's a Triple Crown guy. Pujols is hanging on so long. I don't even think he has a chance of catching Bonds. He'd have to play for 30 more years. Right?
Well, then maybe that's what he'll do.
If he does break it, it'll be 2030, and you'll be on the podcast.
Well, he's getting a divorce right now, so his only focus is playing good baseball.
No, actually, he's only 100 behind. I thought he had 500 something. So he's 679.
He's going to go on a massive tear.
No, he's not. Alex Rodriguez is on steroids, and he couldn't even get past.
He's going to be like Rocky when he went to Russia to train. He came back to St. Louis.
So is this how many seasons? So he's
baseballs.
Played 17 seasons, right? Is that what that 17 means? So he's 100 behind him. I think we looked at this before, and his numbers have been tapering down. But it really comes down to.
But now he's going to be playing the Pirates multiple times, so he's going to get free BP.
But he's 42 already. Julio Franco's hitting the ball hard, but once you get in your 40s, you can't hit the home runs. So just be hitting gappers, ground roll doubles, Matt. But we'll see. We'll do it. We'll do a tracker. That'll be our thing for the show, because I guess he's 70 or 90, 80 something behind him. I can't do the math in my head, but he's closer than I thought. I thought last time I looked, he was 500 something. But he couldn't pass up Alex Rodriguez, which we'd all be cheering for, because A-Rod, of course, cheats. And there's no asterisk beside his name. Oh, I guess Bonds doesn't have it because he's not in the Hall of Fame, which is bullshit. A-Rod isn't in there either. It'll be funny. I want all these other guys to make it, because if the top 30 people in home runs are all in the Hall of Fame except for Barry Bonds, that will just show how much of a joke it is. So that's what I'll end the show on. Thanks for listening. Go to southboundsports.com. We got some more draft stuff coming up as the draft's getting closer, and we'll see you next week.